My second nightmare began with a phone call from my mother. Not surprising, of course. She, one way or another, always ends up at the center of all the troubles that happen to me. During my engagement, my mom was one of the people who insisted that I forgive Jenny after she lied to me about seeing her ex-boyfriend. She loves you, Nikki, and you're lucky to have her. She's a great girl. Don't let this little incident ruin what you have. And even in the midst of my first nightmare, when it seemed like a mother should be fully supportive of her son, she insisted that it was at least partly my fault, that Jenny wouldn't have done this without a reason, that nothing was as it seemed. Blah, blah, blah. Thanks, Mom. So where did I stop? Oh yes, on the second nightmare. It all started with a phone call from my mother. The call came on Saturday around 11:15 when I had just returned from karate class. I was drenched in sweat, dreaming of a shower and lunch, but instead I was hit with a bell. Hey, Mickey, it's me. How are you, baby? I sighed. My mom loves to talk. I knew I'd be standing in the kitchen until the sweat on my back dried. Hey, Mom, I'm fine. How are you? She chatted for a couple of minutes about Naomi Alberson and her hip problems, about the neighbor's dog that barks at night and keeps her from sleeping, about the increase in taxes on her house. I listened with half an ear, sipping my beer, and waited for her to get down to business. When this happened, I regretted that I had even picked up the phone. Nikki, I wanted to talk to you about Jenny. She paused, but I was too stunned to say anything, so she continued. She called me last night, and we talked for a long time. She really wants to see you, baby, but she's afraid to call you, so she asked me for advice. This time I found my voice. Well, she must be afraid to talk to me, Mom. I have nothing to say to her, and I don't want to hear anything she might say to me. Don't be like that, honey. I know she hurt you, but it was a long time ago, and… What are you talking about? Hurt me? Do you think that word covers what she did? And it wasn't that long ago, it was 7 months ago. Trust me, I won't soon forget how much time has passed. Nikki, don't you dare raise your voice at me. I sighed, took the phone away from my mouth, and waited. I told her she should be brave and just call you. I told her I'm sure you'll be fair and give her a chance to come and say what she wants to say. That's right, Mom, I'll be as fair to her as she was fair to me. Suddenly, I couldn't take it anymore. Listen, Mom, I need to finish this conversation. We'll talk soon. And I hung up before she could say another word. Jesus Christ on a bike. Jenny wants to see me? How cute, how damn cute. I knew it wouldn't end. I knew this because I knew my mother and I knew Jenny. Well, once I thought I knew Jenny, now I wasn't sure if I knew her at all. The Jenny I thought was mine, the Jenny I loved with all my heart, had nothing in common with the one who tore out my heart and lungs and trampled on them while smiling in my face. The next week, my mother called 3 more times about the same thing, and a letter arrived from Jenny. Seeing her familiar handwriting on the envelope, I felt a shock, as if I had drunk 6 cups of espresso at once. My heart started pounding, and I suddenly wanted to punch something. I threw the envelope straight into the trash and went out into the backyard to do some sparring exercises. It took me almost an hour to calm down. A week later, when I came home from work, there was a message on my answering machine from Jenny. Suspecting nothing, I pressed play, taking the drink out of the refrigerator. Hearing her voice, I was too shocked to move. Hi, Nikki, this is Jenny. I sent you a letter last week. Hope you received it. I was hoping I could. By this point, I had lunged for the answering machine like it was a rattlesnake and hit the delete button. I probably pressed the damn button 6 times, poking at it like I was trying to kill something. Another rush of adrenaline, another pounding heart. Why won't this damn bitch leave me alone? I ran upstairs, changed clothes, and went to karate class. I decided not to answer the phone and let the answering machine filter my calls. Over the next 10 days, Jenny left 3 more messages, as well as a couple from my mother and one from her friend Angela, who was a bridesmaid at our wedding. I always liked Angela, but as soon as I heard what she wanted to talk about, I deleted her message too. It was getting out of control. Almost every day, I would come home to find my answering machine full of messages that made me nervous and upset. I chose a time when I knew Jenny would be at work and left a message on her home answering machine. I wrote it in advance, making it as short as possible. "This is Nick. I don't want to see or hear you. Don't call, don't write, don't come." I knew it wouldn't work, of course. 2 days later, my mother left me a message. "How could you be so cruel to Jenny? She called me in tears and told me about your message. Do you have any feelings for her at all?" Yes, I have feelings for her. I wish they weren't there, but they are. I'd like to see her drowning in quicksand, slowly sinking, desperately calling for help, while I sat safely on a rock 10 feet away, holding the rope and smiling as I watched her die. My mother left me another message, asking me to come on Sunday and help her rearrange the furniture, and at the same time have lunch. She was still living in the house where I was raised with my father, and it was becoming increasingly difficult for her to cope on her own. So I rearranged the sofa, 2 chairs, the TV stand, and the lamps, and she fed me tuna salad sandwiches and fussed over me carefully, and I waited for the trick to follow. She never mentioned Jenny, so I knew something was going to happen. Of course, as I was munching on a brownie, I looked out the window and saw Jenny's green Jetta pull up to the house. I said, "Excuse me a moment, Mom," and headed to the bathroom in the back of the house. As Mom walked to the front door to let Jenny in, I quietly slipped out of the kitchen and sat in the car in the driveway. As soon as the front door closed behind them, I started the car and drove away. 2 hours later, I called my mother. When she answered the phone, I didn't even say hello. I simply said, "If you do something like this again, it will be the last time you see me," and hung up. Davis sat in the kitchen with me, sipping a beer. Davis has been my closest friend since high school. He was my best man at my wedding to Jenny and used to be my regular karate partner. And he was always the one person in the world that I could count on. His real name was Brandon Edward Davidson, but since he was a teenager, everyone just called him Davis. I was telling him about how Jenny had been trying to contact me, and the look on his face was hard to describe. Something like a person swallowing 5 or 6 worms. "Damn, Nick, what did you tell her?" I told him about my battles with my mother, all the deleted messages, how I left a message on Jenny's answering machine, and ended with a little dance I had at my mother's last weekend. I sighed and said, "You understand what's coming next, right? Jenny will never give this up. Short of a restraining order, I don't see any way to get rid of her. Do you have any idea what she wants?" "I have no idea. I just know whatever it is, it can't be good. Every time I hear her voice on the answering machine or see a letter with her handwriting on it, my blood pressure goes through the roof. I swear, man, I thought about quitting my job and just moving somewhere else." "Yeah, but she'd probably find you even if you moved to outer Mongolia. She's like a piranha, Nick." We were silent for a long time. Then he said, "Don't be mad, okay? Just listen to me. What if you agree to meet her, and when she comes, I'll be here with you?" "I don't want to see her. Davis, I don't want to see her, hear her voice, or even think about her." "I know, dude. But you just said she'd never leave it, no matter what it is. Why not just get it over with?" I sighed, unhappy. "Let me think about it, okay? You're probably right. 1 bad hour, and maybe I can get rid of her." I watched from the kitchen window the following Saturday as Jenny walked up to the house, wearing a yellow summer dress that had always been one of my favorites. I couldn't look at her hell. I couldn't even think about her without strong and complex feelings. She was absolutely beautiful, still my dream woman. She was small and slender, with blue eyes and gorgeous blonde, silky hair that reached 6 inches below her shoulders. And she had the young, innocent face of an angel, proof that God really does have a sick sense of humor. When the door opened, she said, "Hi, honey, I'm so Davis." She looked very stunned. "Yes, it's me," Davis said in an unfriendly tone, holding the door for her to enter the house. "I thought Nick might need a little support." He motioned her to a chair in the living room. I took a deep breath and walked out of the kitchen, holding 3 glasses of water on a tray. I worked out an hour earlier this morning, then did 30 minutes of quiet breathing. I was going to stay calm even if it killed me. No matter what, my heart was already pounding in my chest. "Hi, Jenny," I said quietly, placing the glass in front of her. She gave me a beaming smile and said, "It's so great to see you again, honey." I didn't react to this at all, trying to keep my face as calm as possible. "This is your meeting, bitch," I thought. "Let's just get this over with." Undeterred, she said, "Actually, I was hoping we could talk in private, Nick." "I don't think so, Jenny. Davis is a good friend. Whatever you want to tell me, you can say in his presence." She hesitated for a moment, then pulled herself together. "Okay, honey, if that's what you want." I watched as she tried to make her face serious and attractive at the same time. What did she want? "Nick, I understand that I made a terrible mistake. The biggest mistake of my life, and I'm so sorry. Honey, I want to come home. I only love you, and I want us to be together." I thought I was going to faint, and it took all my strength and karate training to keep a straight face. I felt my heart beating wildly, and I was slightly swaying. I didn't move. From across the room, Davis growled, "You, damn, bitch. You really have steel. Nerves, do you know? After what you did to Nick, you think you can just walk into this house and pretend nothing happened? You're just a cold-blooded scum." His voice was quiet but icy. After, after the nightmare you put Nick through, you think you can just walk in here and pretend nothing happened? You're just a cold-blooded scum." I didn't move. I really wasn't sure I could stand up without falling. I watched Jenny's face. She looked absolutely shocked by Davis's furious words. Finally, she gave a sad half-smile. Apparently, she decided to ignore Davis because she turned straight to me. "I know I was terrible. Honey, I really am. You're probably still so mad at me, and—" "That's enough," I said. "Just stop it, Jenny. Don't say another word." I slowly stood up and walked back to the kitchen, leaving deathly silence behind me. I turned on the cold water in the sink and ran it over my face and neck, trying to clear my head. My thoughts were in disarray. This must be a cruel joke. Someone has decided that I haven't suffered enough and is going to screw me over again. I really thought I had gotten through the worst of it, but it seems I was wrong. In that moment, I learned something I would rather not know. I thought that when you hate someone really, truly hate them, you don't love them anymore. But I was wrong. I hated Jenny more than I've ever hated anyone in my life. But my heart sang. I heard the birds chirping sweetly in the trees, and my blood bubbled joyfully within me. She wanted to come back. She loved me. To say that the realization that I still loved Jenny, loved her desperately, didn't make me happy would be an understatement. This only confirmed that I was in the middle of my second nightmare. I stood up from the sink, took a few slow, deep breaths, and walked back into the living room. Jenny and Davis sat in tense silence. They both looked at me. "Jenny, you need to leave." I said this quietly, trying to keep my voice from trembling. "Honey, right now you need to leave right now. You've said your word. I don't want to see or hear from you anymore. I don't see how I can express myself any clearer." I watched as Jenny's face blurred and she began to cry. "Honey, I know I screwed up, but I really thought we—" Her voice trailed off into sobs. I absolutely, definitely couldn't take it anymore. I turned away, and without looking back, I said, "Davis, can you help Jenny get to her car?" "Sure, dude." Without another word, I headed towards the stairs. I slowly walked upstairs to my bedroom, hearing Jenny's desperate cries behind me. "Nick, honey, please." I sat on the bed, feeling numb, listening to the sound of the closing front door. Then I waited for the sound of Jenny's car driving away. It came finally, and I went downstairs and collapsed on the sofa. Davis returned and sat down in the chair opposite me. Lord Jesus on the back of a camel. He shook his head in amazement. "She doesn't understand at all, does she? After she—" "Davis." He looked at me and saw tears on my face. "Davis, I'm so screwed." "What do you mean, dude?" I mean, I love her. I love her madly. I want her back. Can you believe it? I still want her back. I burst into tears, the only time in my life that I have cried in front of another man. Even at my father's funeral, I was able to control myself until I was left alone. I'm sure it was awkward for Davis, but he was a true friend. He sat down next to me, put his hand on my shoulder, squeezed it tightly, and just held it while I cried like a child. Like a damn child. I just realized that I'm telling you about my second nightmare. How about the first one, right? You're probably thinking, what did she do to this guy anyway? So I guess I'll have to tell you about my first nightmare. It won't be much fun, though. There is a story in some famous book about a rich guy who was asked how he ended up bankrupt. His answer was, gradually and then suddenly. That's exactly how my first nightmare happened, except I didn't know much about the gradual part. This happened behind my back. I had several girlfriends before I met Jenny, but she outshone them all. She was wonderful, funny, attentive, affectionate, honest, and loved me. Loved me. I felt like I had won the lottery. I mean, this was a girl who should be with Derek Jeter, not your average 24-year-old electrical engineer from Dayton, Ohio. We dated for almost 2 years before I got the courage to ask her to marry me. Even then, after we slept together for over a year, spending almost every night at her or mine, I was scared to death that she would say no. But she didn't say. She screamed, grabbed the ring, and put it on her finger, and loudly kissed and hugged me in the middle of the restaurant. People even applauded. We did the classics: church, white wedding dress, bouquet toss, honeymoon on Maui, and then settled into a cozy 3-room house and lived happily ever after. Well, take away the long, maybe replace it with about 4 years. It wasn't perfect, don't get me wrong. One of the problems was that Jenny loved to have fun, loved to dance, generally loved to go out and live more actively than I did. One club night every couple of weeks was enough for me, and her preference was a couple of times a week. But we compromised. Sometimes I would be understanding, and we would go clubbing, usually with a couple of her friends. Other times she was understanding, and we watched the video and stayed home. The great thing was that both nights ended with us making love. Making love to her was amazing, sometimes tender and affectionate, sometimes energetic and passionate. I've never been with a woman who gave herself so completely to me, who was so open and completely immersed in the moment as we did. Our other problem was that I couldn't stop thinking she was too good for me. How did I get into this movie, I thought. A guy like me doesn't get a girl like her. In real life, Kevin James would only marry Angelina Jolie in a stupid romantic comedy. Not that I'm like him, but you know what I mean. But she loved me and constantly showed it, and gradually my worries faded into the background. To whom God wants to harm, he first calms his worries, as they say. Or if it's not a saying, it should be. Gradually, started about 4 months before, suddenly. Of course, I knew nothing about it then. In fact, most of what I'm about to say I pieced together later. While all this was happening, I hardly noticed anything, like a classic zombie husband. When we went out to clubs, Jenny almost always danced with other guys. Sometimes I danced with other women, but mostly I was happy to drink beer and watch her. I wasn't as much of a dance fan as she was. Jenny was so beautiful and hot on the dance floor that there were always guys who wanted to dance with her. One night, there was a very cute guy who danced with her 3-4 times, but I never would have thought about it if it wasn't for what happened later. The rest of the evening was completely normal, including Jenny slow dancing with me a couple of times and hugging me as close as possible. We returned home and had fantastic sex that night, as we often did after nights out. It turns out that this guy is named Alec, and doesn't the name itself say what a scoundrel he was? Most guys named Alexander call themselves Alex, or maybe Sandy. But not this bastard. He needs to be Alec, as in, I'm so special, ordinary nicknames don't suit me. So, this Alec thinks that Jenny is very hot, which, however, is true, and it doesn't bother him at all that she's married, so he finds out her last name and place of work from her friend, and then he starts hitting on her. He was an actor, nothing special, but important to Dayton, I think he did some commercials in Chicago and performed in the theater, and he had a very flexible schedule. So he checked out the office building where Jenny worked, found out where the people working there went to lunch, followed Jenny, and managed to accidentally run into her about a week after they were dancing at a club. He played it very carefully. "Oh, hi, how are you? What a pleasant surprise. Remember, I'm Alec. We danced in the Mercedes last week," and so on. So Jenny invites him to sit at a table with her and her friends, and he makes up some excuse for why he often dines in the area. That's how it all started, and you can probably guess a lot of the rest. The only real question is how difficult or easy it was for him to get her into bed, and I don't know the answer to that question. If it was difficult, if she was trying to be a faithful wife at first, then he probably moved very slowly and carefully. Casual meetings, then a casual invitation to dinner, then again a couple of weeks later, and so on. If it was easy, if Jenny was showing that she was available, and who the hell knows at this point. I certainly didn't. He probably moved faster then, offering lunch in a public place, and then probably somewhere more private. Maybe a picnic in a secluded part of the park, maybe lunch in a hotel restaurant. Either way, he won her. Was it in 3 weeks or 10 weeks? I have no idea, but the result was the same. But I bet the next thing came as a surprise to Alec. Jenny fell in love with him. Or thought she was in love. Who the hell really knows what's going on in her head? I once thought I knew. Either way, I have no doubt that Alec was only thinking about sleeping with a very attractive lady he met at a club, and since Jenny was an amazing lover, it is not surprising that once was not enough for him, and he continued to date her. But for Jenny, it became spiritual closeness, hearts and flowers meant to be together. In fact, it was probably true for her even before she got into bed with him for the first time. I don't see Jenny as a woman who cold-bloodedly cheats just because she was attracted to someone and decided to experience a new delight. Although, I guess the last few months have shown me how little I knew my own wife, so why should you believe anything I say? In any case, they say that for women, it is rare that purely sexual attraction can lead to infidelity. And I suspect that Jenny actually believed his words and decided that she really loved him before she allowed him to take off her underwear. So things got serious and emotional, and Jenny got really into it. I don't know what Alec really told her. I have no idea whether he really thought he loved her, but in any case, he did not push her away or slow down her pace. She began seeing him more often, arranging long lunches or doctor's appointments during work hours so they could properly enjoy each other. Except that for her, it was not just pleasure, it was a sexual relationship with the love of her life. And they must have already made plans together. When she will tell me, when she will move in with him, all the financial matters, all of this. This was gradually. I didn't know anything, and even looking back, I can't say I would have noticed anything. Jenny was sweet and affectionate at home. We still went out about as much as before. We still made love about as much as before. One night, I came home to dinner, and Jenny was crying. I saw it in her face. Of course, I was worried, asked her about it, and tried to console her. She only said that her work friend was very ill. She was a little vague in her explanation, and I did not insist. Only after everything collapsed did I remember about it again. Jenny probably planned what she was going to do and felt guilty about how it would affect me. At the very least, I would like to believe that she was at least a little ashamed. So this was gradually, are you still with me? Suddenly, happened in typical fashion, basically. I had a 2-day training in Cleveland, which was almost 4 hours away, so I planned to stay overnight. And then the evening session from 6 to 9 p.m. on the first day was canceled, and since I didn't have to get back to Cleveland until 10 a.m. the next day, I decided to surprise Jenny and go home for the night. It was a lot of driving, but I really loved my wife. I bought some beautiful flowers in Cleveland and left around 6:30 and reached my house around 10:15. There was a car parked in front of the house, but cars parked along our street, and I didn't pay attention to it. You see what's happening, right? God, how I hate being at the center of such a banal story. Although it didn't make it any more painful or easier if it was unique. Again, most of what I'm telling you is what I remembered later, When I played it over and over again in my head, unable to get it out of my head, and I remembered all the details that I was too stunned to notice at the time. I entered the house and walked up the stairs to our bedroom. The door was wide open, and when I took 2 steps into the room, I froze. The room was softly lit by a couple of candles on the bedside tables. Alec and Jenny lay in our bed, dozing, naked. He was propped up against the pillows on my side, and she was laying with her head on his chest and hugging him. The room smelled of candles and sex, and they were clearly making love. I never found out if they were in between rounds or calling it a night, but it doesn't matter, right? I'm not a quick thinker in these situations. I tend to freeze or move slowly and carefully rather than go crazy. The crazy similarities come later. So, to my eternal shame, I didn't drag him out of bed and kick him between the legs. I didn't even scream. I dropped the flowers and said, "What's going on here?" in a quiet, stunned voice. Well, their eyes widened and they looked at me, surprised. About what happened after that first moment, I replayed it in my head many times. I replayed the movie in my head 1,000,000 times. A smug grin appeared on Alec's face. A smug, what a cuckold, poor fool look. But I didn't look at him, I looked at Jenny. And after that first shocked moment, when she grabbed the sheet and pulled it up to cover her breasts from me, her husband, what I saw on her face was a soft, sympathetic look, almost with pity. She said, "Nick, I didn't mean for it to be like this." Notice what she didn't say. Not, "I'm so sorry," or "It doesn't mean anything," or "It doesn't mean anything," or "Please forgive me," or "I love you," or "It was just sex." No, she just said this one sentence to me, looking so calm and so sorry. And then, without any sign of fear or embarrassment, she turned to the bastard and said, "You better go, honey. I'll talk to you tomorrow." And she smiled at him. She fucking smiled at him. And Alec, that bastard, gets out of bed, still grinning, picks up his clothes, and calmly leaves the room and goes down the stairs. What am I doing? I'm still standing in the middle of the room, frozen, shocked, motionless like Wile E. Coyote when he ran over the edge of the cliff, and had not yet noticed that he was 500 feet above the canyon and was about to fall down. Neither Jenny nor I moved until we heard the front door open and close. Then she said, still so calm and sympathetic, "We need to talk, honey. Let me take a quick shower, and we can talk downstairs, okay?" And she got out of bed, pulling the sheets around her. Why? Because I wasn't supposed to see her naked anymore after 4 years of marriage. Because she didn't want me to see the body Alec got. Because he left his marks on her. I don't have the slightest idea, and I walked out of the room straight into the bathroom, closing the door behind me. A moment later, I heard the water in the shower turn on. There were a lot of things I could have done back then, and you might think I was a complete idiot for not doing any of them. I could get in the shower and beat her up, or throw all her clothes out of the bedroom window, or set the house on fire with her inside. Or I could get in the car and drive back to Cleveland, or just go to a bar or Davis's and drink until you pass out. But at that moment, I didn't even consider any of these options. And I realized that if I leave, I want him looking for Jenny for another 24 hours. Although stunned, paralyzed, I still needed to find out what was happening. I mean, I knew what was going on. This blonde actor had my wife in my bed. But I needed to know what it meant. Yes, I know, besides the obvious, I needed to understand the rest. How long? Why? How much more? What's next? I wasn't angry yet. It just didn't dawn on me. I realized that day that you can actually see something with your own eyes and still not believe it. At least not right away. So I went downstairs, sat at the kitchen table, and stared at the wall, not thinking about anything. Within 20 minutes, I don't think I had a single coherent thought until Jenny walked into the room, beautiful, fresh from her shower, wrapped in a yellow terry robe, her damp hair fragrant and shiny. If I hadn't been so stunned, that's when I would have started crying, screaming, and possibly throwing something. Instead, we sat down and had the most surreal conversation of my life. "Nick, I'm so sorry you had to see that. I didn't expect you to be back until tomorrow. Honey, what happened? Does it matter? The evening session was canceled, and I wanted to surprise you. A good surprise. I pointed to the flowers I had brought her, lying abandoned on the kitchen table. She looked down for a moment, then looked back up at me. I never expected this to happen. I was going to talk to you about it tomorrow night when you got back from your trip. What should we talk about? The fact that you're now having sex on the side and you want me to know about it. That's very thoughtful of you, Jenny. She grimaced and shook her head. No, Nick, it's not like that. It's not like that at all. She looked at me intently and even reached across the table to take my hand. She took my hand. Even now, I can't believe it. Nick, I never expected this to happen. You have to believe me. Alec and we're in love. Really in love. And he's the man I want to spend the rest of my life with. I'm so sorry. What? I looked at her, not understanding. Are you in love with someone else? What are you talking about? I didn't want this to happen. I swear to you, honey, but he is everything I ever wanted in a man. She must have seen the shock and pain on my face and hastened to continue. Oh, honey, don't take it that way. You are so wonderful to me, so reliable and loving. But our life together, well, it's ordinary, it's stable, good, and reliable. But with Alec, it's magical. He's exciting, wild, unpredictable. Every moment with him is like a roller coaster ride. I've never felt like this in my life. Nick, I have to be with him. I'm so sorry. I was going to tell you about it tomorrow night and move in with him on Saturday. I guess I'll have to speed things up one day. Jenny, God, I can't believe this. How did this happen? How long has that bastard been sleeping with you? Nick, it's not like that. She spoke sharply, then calmed down again. We first met at Mercedes about 4 months ago. We just danced a few times, nothing more. And then we randomly met at lunch a couple of times, and we started having lunch together alone after that. And it was incredible. We have so much in common. It's like we were meant for each other from birth. We just haven't found each other yet. I looked at her, desperately trying to collect my thoughts. I probably had an ick of about 72 back then. And you're telling me you're leaving me for him? She nodded, still holding my hand. Yes, honey. I'm so sorry. I never meant to hurt you. Then her face got that damn elevated look again. I want to slap her every time I think about it, and she said, but that's what had to happen, me and Alec. We sat in silence for a while after that. She probably looked at me sympathetically. Poor boy, I know I hurt him, and I was in some kind of stupor. What happened to me was so far beyond any unlikely scenario I had ever imagined, even in my dreams, that it left me numb and dull. Finally, I said, what about the vows we made to each other? You know, to love, respect, and cherish, leaving everyone else? Were you just kidding? Were you keeping your fingers crossed behind your back? Her face took on a painful but patient look, like that of a mother talking to a difficult child. Nick, I meant every word you know. I thought we'd be together forever. This is as much of a shock to me as it is to you. I didn't plan for this. I didn't want to do this. It just happened. And if it changes anything, I'm really, really sorry. I really am. It's so unfair to you, I know. A little more silence. I still felt numb, like I couldn't see or hear very well, like my head was filled with cotton. A few minutes later, I suddenly stood up and poured myself a glass of water. Still standing at the sink, not looking at her, I said, I'm going back to Cleveland. I'd like you and your things to be gone by the time I get back tomorrow. I suddenly, desperately, almost in a panic, wanted to leave the house, get out of her sight. I think I realized I was about to lose control. I think I vaguely heard her say, okay, honey, as I hurried toward the door without looking back. I only drove 4 blocks before the tears overtook me and I had to stop. I cried and sobbed, hit the dashboard, kicked the floor, and generally acted like a 6-year-old child having a tantrum. This lasted about 10 minutes, with anger, pain, and sadness mixed in, and when it passed, I wiped my face, started the car, and drove back to Cleveland, which, amazingly, I managed to do without crashing into anyone or anything along the way. When I got there, it was already past 2:30 am, and I immediately fell into bed and was able to sleep. Then I spent the next day in a sort of somnambulistic state at the sessions, although I can't tell you anything about them, and drove slowly back to Dayton. There was no need to rush. Her things were gone, and her cosmetics and purses and everything else too. And she took a few of our CDs, but not too many, and none of the furniture or stereo equipment. I guess she moved in with Alec, although she didn't say so. And she didn't take a single photo, not one of the many photos of the two of us, wedding and honeymoon photos, random photos of us and our families that were displayed throughout the house. I don't know why she did it, but she left me a note. One sentence, not even worth the time it took to write it. Nick, I'm so sorry. I'll always look out for you, Jenny. So this is my first nightmare. Enough details for you? I hope, because I can't say anything more to you. Except perhaps for some consequences, you might be interested to know about this too. My rage grew slowly and unevenly as the shock wore off. It was starting to become a little more real for me. My beloved wife, the love of my life, left me, fell in love with another man, and went to him. I knew from the first night that I would never be able to sleep in our bedroom again after what I saw. Without looking around, I moved all my things into the guest bedroom. The double bed there suited me quite well. It wasn't until Sunday afternoon that I walked back into our bedroom and looked around. In my mind, I still saw the two of them naked in bed, pillows propped up against the headboard. I saw candles on the nightstand and smelled sex in the air. But all this disappeared, of course. Jenny changed the sheets and remade the bed, put away the candles, and everything looked like nothing had happened. And then I went a little crazy. I'm not proud of what I did next, although I think it's all part of how I dealt with it. The clean, untouched appearance of the bedroom angered me. I wanted to see it again as it was. I started to get angry, really angry, and I started crying. I took out the candles and placed them on the bedside tables and lit them, and I made the bed, pulled down the top sheet, and leaned the pillows back as they were. How else did I survive the first few weeks? I went to work. I was returning home. I didn't tell anyone what happened except Davis. He came to see me on a Saturday afternoon, and I sat him down with a beer and told him the whole story, every word I could remember. He looked at me in shock, in absolute amazement. All he said was, "Jesus Christ," several times, shaking his head. And when I finished, he was still sitting there, shaking his head. "This bitch," he finally said slowly, "and she thinks she loves this asshole." That's what she says. He's the love of her life, the one she's been waiting for all her life, even if she didn't know it before. While I don't know, Mr. Slow and reliable, reliable but boring, the one she only thought she loved. We sat in silence for a while, and he said, "I was wondering what you were going to do. But it's too early for that. How about we go hit some golf balls?" Here's how Davis helped me get through it. We hit golf balls. We watched football on TV. We were sparring. We drank beer, although I never got completely drunk, which is strange. I never wanted to. We talked a lot during the first few weeks about Jenny and me and what I wanted to do next. Sometimes we talked about him and Kathleen, the woman he dated from time to time. I decided to leave the house. I could afford the mortgage on my salary and did not want to move. But I decided not to file for divorce. To hell with it. If she wants to marry this bastard, she can file and pay a lawyer. It didn't matter to me. I canceled all my credit cards and got several new ones. Talking to Davis also helped me realize that I needed to keep busy. I needed to find ways to not sit at home alone, staring at walls. I did karate for many years, once or twice a week, and reached the brown belt level, but it was just a hobby. Now I got serious about this. I started going to classes 4 to 5 times a week, and additionally doing sparring in my yard. Karate was perfect. It forced me to focus and be disciplined, to concentrate on what I was doing and nothing else. The 90-minute sessions were oases without a single thought about Jenny. And needless to say, what a great outlet for my rage. Punching, kicking, punching an opponent, or even into the void, I probably don't have to tell you how many times I imagined Alex's smug face on the receiving end of my blows. And when I reached the fourth level of black belt, I started breaking boards with my hand. It was very satisfying. So now you know what I know. And for me, that was far more than enough to make me miserable, but nowhere near enough to really understand it. I mean, how can a woman who is happily married fall in love with another man? I know this happens, but how does it happen? Jenny wasn't unhappy with me, and I still don't believe she was looking for someone. But that bastard Alec found his way and seduced her, and somehow made her believe that they were soul mates meant to be together. Like Romeo and Juliet, Tristan and Isolde, Hero and Leander. Now 8 months had passed, and I was starting to feel a little better, thinking that the worst was over, and I could start thinking about a new life without Jenny. And now she's telling me she wants to get back with me. I really hoped that after the day Jenny came to me, this would be the end of it. I listened to what she wanted and gave her my answer. I didn't let her talk completely, but who cares, right? But less than a week had passed before my mother began to put pressure on me again. Now I didn't pick up the phone at all, so all communication was through messages. She's sorry for what she did. Nick, she really is. You should hear her talk about you. You should give her another chance. That was the basic idea, although my mother found different ways to express it. I called her on Saturday morning before I left for karate, so she couldn't keep me on the phone for too long. Mom, it's me. Please listen to me, okay? I am not, I repeat not, going back to Jenny. It's over. Thinking about her, talking about her, seeing her, it all just makes me feel worse. You are my mother, and you should be on my side, right? So please don't mention Jenny again. After a long pause, she said with an offended voice, "Of course, I'm on your side, Nick. It's just that Jenny is like that." "Mom, I have to go by." I interrupted her and hung up. My mother will never understand this. The next week was good, mainly because of karate. I was training for an amateur tournament in Columbus, so after each regular practice, I had an hour of extra practice, and my teacher wore me down to the point of exhaustion. I would come home feeling exhausted, but happy, eat dinner, watch the Davis game, or read, and go to bed. And then on Saturday, when I returned from karate around 2 o'clock in the afternoon, Jenny's friend Angela was sitting on the porch of my house. For a moment, I thought about driving past the house, and then I decided, what the hell, I can't avoid people forever. She smiled at me as I walked up to her and said, "Hey, Nick, can you buy the girl a beer?" "Sure, Angie, if you don't mind having a drink with a sweaty guy." "I think I can handle it," she replied with another smile. We went inside and drank beer, chatting about nothing in particular. Like I said, I've always liked Angela. She was a short and curvy brunette, the polar opposite of Jenny, but like Jenny, she was outgoing and fun-loving. At the beginning of our marriage, Jenny and I hoped that maybe Angie and Davis would get together because we liked both of them, but they never worked out. They teased each other in a friendly way, but never met. In any case, I didn't mind Angela being there. She was funny and a joy to watch. But I couldn't help but look forward to talking about Jenny. After all, this unexpected meeting could not be about anything other than Jenny. When we finished the beer, I said so. "As nice as it was to see you, Angie, there must be a reason you came. Care to tell me what it is?" She blushed and looked down for a minute. "You probably think it's because of Jenny, Nick, but it's not. I love you too, you know. I always thought we were friends too, not just Jenny, and I missed you. When she left, I felt like I had to stay away out of loyalty to her or something." Now she was looking straight at me. But eventually I thought, damn, Nick is my friend too. Why can't I see him? And here I am. I looked at her suspiciously. "So it's really not about Jenny? You're not going to tell me I have to give her back?" Angela looked a little unsure, but she held my gaze and said, "No, Nick, that's not the point. I was just hoping that we could spend time together like we used to." I won't say that I believed her. I'm just not that gullible, you know. Maybe there was once, but not after Nightmare Hash one. But I didn't press further. "Okay, Angie, I'll take a quick shower, and then we can go get lunch." and it was the start of a very strange but really enjoyable few weeks. Angela came to see me twice more the following week, and we also went to dinner and a movie the following weekend. She, as promised, did not mention Jenny, did not pry into my feelings or ask about my current personal life. Instead, we acted like friends, much like me and Davis, probably except Angela was prettier and smelled much better. Angie loved baseball, so we watched some games on TV, and at her request, I showed her some of the advanced karate moves I was learning. I told her about the upcoming tournament and random things at work, and she thought it was very interesting. And we talked about other things too, like Angie's work and her family life growing up. We just got to know each other better, and I slowly became a little less suspicious. No, that's wrong. I'll try again. I was becoming less suspicious that Angie was coming to me to talk me into going back to Jenny. But at the same time, I became more suspicious. If this is not what she is for, then what is she for? I loved being with Angie, but why did she spend so much time around me? And what made things difficult was that she was beautiful and sexy. She looked good and smelled good and really enjoyed my company. I'm only human, and I haven't been with a woman in almost 10 months. I began to realize that the feelings I had for her were much more than friendship, but I did not know whether they were purely lust or something much more complex. Before I could process my feelings and figure out what to do with them, everything went wrong in the most unexpected way. Angie invited me to dinner Friday night at her apartment, and I assumed it would be a casual dinner like we'd done several times before. But when I arrived, there was a tablecloth and candles on the kitchen table, the lights were dim, and Angie herself looked stunning. No jeans or sweater, she was wearing a short black skirt, tights, and a pale blue sweater that hugged her tightly and emphasized her cleavage. Her hair was loose on her shoulders. "Oh my God, Angie, you look amazing. Are we going to some party you forgot to tell me about? If so, you're going to have to fend off guys with a stick." She blushed and looked very pleased, but said only, "Thanks, Nick. I just wanted to dress up a little today, that's all." At first I felt uncomfortable, convinced that something was wrong, and having a hard time believing that the most obvious explanation Angela was going to seduce me was correct. We chatted nervously for a few minutes, but then calmed down, ate dinner, and enjoyed each other's company. Usually she and I preferred beer, but today she brought a bottle of red wine. It wasn't a screw bottle, but one of those Shadow La Dollar 42. 50 bottles that the liquor store salespeople are always trying to sell you. I thought it was great, but I'm far from an expert. We washed the dishes together, as we always do after dinner, and I noticed that Angie was standing very close and constantly brushing her thigh against mine, acting as if nothing was happening. Then she took me into the living room, turned on the music, and sat down next to me on the sofa. I realized I had to say something, so I just went ahead. "Angela, it's my pleasure, but I need to know what's going on, okay? We've been just friends for weeks, but this." She stopped me by placing a finger on my lips. "Don't talk, okay, Nick? Just let it happen. I've been waiting for this for so long." I watched her carefully, surprised. She looked nervous but determined and leaned over and kissed me tenderly. The kiss was amazing, and I was in no hurry to interrupt it. When she pulled away, she smiled shyly and leaned in to kiss him again. This time her arms hugged me tightly, and we started kissing passionately. Like I said, Angie is stunningly beautiful and has a great figure. And as I said, I haven't been with a woman for a long time. And as I have already said, I felt more and more affection and attraction towards her. And like I said, she was dressed sexy. And as I said, we had a romantic candlelit dinner and lots of wine. And as I said, she actively pestered me. So don't judge me, okay? I had a beautiful, ready girl in my arms, and I went for it. I hugged and kissed her, stroked her back, and gently told her how beautiful she was, and after a while my hand slid down and covered her breasts. When I stroked her, she moaned and pressed herself even tighter against me, so I knew I was doing everything right. I can't say, to be honest, that I didn't think about Jenny at all. I knew all too well that the only other woman I'd been this close to in years was Jenny, and even my pleasure and excitement with Angie hadn't completely driven the treacherous bitch wife out of my mind. But on the other hand, thoughts of Jenny did not torment me. I was focused on Angie and how much fun we were giving each other, and I was looking forward to the obvious next steps. So imagine my surprise. I don't like cliches, but this fits perfectly. Imagine my surprise when Angie suddenly pulled away from me and looked at me with a sad expression, tears filling her eyes. Before I could say a word, she was already on her feet, looking down at me and saying, "Nick, I, I'm so sorry. I can't do this." Confused, thinking I had missed something, I stood up and tried to hug her gently, saying, "It's okay, Angie, sorry. We probably went too fast." "No," she screamed, moving away from me. "No, Nick, it's not you. It's not what you did, it's me. I never intended to." She started crying. Looking at me through her tears, she said, "Can you just leave, please? I'm so sorry." And she cried harder, covering her face with her hands, just standing in the middle of the living room. I tried to hug her again, if only to console her, but she shook her head sharply and ran into the bathroom, locking the door. Not knowing what to do, I just waited for a few minutes. When she didn't come out, I walked to the door, knocked softly and said, "I'm so sorry, Angie, I'm leaving, okay?" Her timid voice came from behind the door. "Yes, Nick, I'm sorry. It's all my fault." Completely puzzled, I put on my coat and went home. Davis sat with me in the living room. "I don't know, man," he said. "It doesn't really make sense to me either. She didn't explain anything to you." I shook my head. "All I can guess is that we went too fast, or that she has some strange feeling of loyalty to Jenny. But what really pisses me off is that she doesn't want to talk about it. I left her, I guess, 10 messages this week, very careful, not pressing, but she never called me back. Damn, Davis, I don't deserve this." He smiled at me, raising an eyebrow. A, no one deserves this. And B, you don't deserve it anymore. You deserve a parade of women who all want you and none of whom are impossible to understand. I snorted. "I've never seen one of these, let alone a parade. What are you going to do?" "Nothing yet," I said. "I have a tournament at the end of next week, and I don't want to embarrass myself there. When I get back, maybe I can get Angie to talk to me and find out what the hell is going on." I won 5 out of 8 matches and finished 9th in my category. Besides being completely tired, I felt pretty good coming back from Columbus. I had a busy weekend where I just ate, slept, and did karate, which was great. I hardly thought about Angela, and even less about Jenny. For the first time since my wife left me, I felt like I had a chance to get out of my nightmare out of nightmares and put my life back together. "This is great, man," Davis congratulated me when I called him. He then added, "And think what a weakling you were just a few months ago, even I could have beaten you." Laughing, I said, "Yeah, 2 times out of 10. Whenever you want to try again, mate, let me know." "No way, buddy, now that you're a badass black belt, you'll make a fool of me, but I can still outdrink you." We exchanged some friendly banter before ending the call, and I thank the gods once again for having such a wonderful friend, especially over the past year. A couple of days later, I decided to go to Angela after work and persuade her to meet with me. After all, she did this to me, and I got tired of leaving phone messages that she didn't answer. I rang the doorbell of her apartment and waited. A moment later, I heard her footsteps, and then she probably looked through the peephole. "Sorry, Nick, I can't see you." Her voice sounded a little muffled through the door. "Well then, Angie, I think I'm in for a long night. I brought a folding chair, and I'm going to sit here in the hallway until you let me in and talk to me. If you pass me in the morning, I'll be here again tomorrow. When you get back from work, you'll have to get used to seeing me every day." There was a long pause, a very long pause. Then I heard the chain being removed, and she opened the door. She was wearing jeans and a black Arctic t-shirt. She wasn't wearing shoes and had probably just taken off her makeup. She looked like she was about to cry. She looked absolutely beautiful. I realized I hadn't seen her for almost a month, and my heart started beating faster. How about that? It's not Jenny that makes my heart beat. Angie, you need to talk to me. I don't know what happened, what I did wrong, but please give me another chance. You're important to me. Can you imagine what it's like to be abandoned after what? What happened to Jenny? I'm really sorry, Nick. I, I guess I didn't think of it that way. Come in and take that stupid chair with you, she added with a small smile. She brought us a couple of sodas, and we sat in the living room, me on the couch and her in the chair opposite me. All I ask, Angie, is that you tell me what went wrong. Was it me? Did I do something to offend you? She shook her head vigorously. No, nothing like that. It's not you, Nick. You didn't do anything wrong. I always felt good with you. She leaned forward. What I have to tell you is a long story, okay? And it will be difficult for me. So you have to promise to listen to the end and not get so angry that you leave. I've never seen her look so serious. I promise, Angie, although I can see from your face that I won't like it. No, you won't like it. She looked out the window for a while and then turned to me. Nick, Jenny is right in the middle of this, and there's no way around it. If you want to hear the truth, you're going to have to hear about her too. I won't say I was happy about it. In fact, I felt my stomach drop, but I just nodded and waited for her to continue. And what followed, as God knows, was yet another version of Nightmare Hash 1. As if I hadn't suffered enough living through it, Angela walked me through Jenny's affair with that asshole Alec, although of course she didn't call it an affair. She explained that Jenny really fell in love with him, like I said, and really thought he was the one with whom she would live happily ever after. But it turned out that everything was wrong. At first, everything with Alec seemed much more exciting than life with me. How could it be otherwise? He was a handsome actor, loved to dance and party late into the night, and life was a riot of fun. It was hard to compare to any married couple's routine. But Alex turned out to be a complete jerk. This was not a surprise to me. He was hyperactive, emotional, and quite unstable, especially when he was on cocaine, which was quite often. He couldn't stick to any schedule, couldn't be where he said he would be half the time, and became aggressive towards Jenny in his wild mood swings. According to Angela, at first it wasn't that bad, just random screaming, although sometimes he got so worked up that Jenny would hide in the bathroom with the door locked. But after a few months, their arguments became so serious that he hit her several times, and Jenny came to Angela's house for the night, scared to death. Jenny finally realized that she had fallen in love with a fantasy that married life had become a little boring, and she attributed that boredom to me, not realizing that no marriage could compete with the excitement of something new. She finally realized what a terrible mistake she had made in thinking she could find magic with a shallow, immature idiot like Alex. Good for her, I interrupted bitterly. I sat quietly listening to this story, as I promised Angela, but it became more and more difficult. I was ready to take off. Angela saw this and quietly said, "Nick, you promised." I nodded and tried to relax. It must be close to the end by now, I kept telling myself. So Jenny moved out of Alex's and rented her own apartment. And then she started talking to my mother and trying to get in touch with me again. I knew the rest of the story, or at least I thought I did. But no, of course, there was something else to further blow my mind. How could I think it would be different? Angela sat next to me and took my hand. Nick, please don't be mad at me. I may be the worst person in the world, but I did it because I cared about Jenny and you. I looked at her with concern. What now? After she broke up with Alex, Jenny was so determined to get you back. She just knew that if you gave her a chance to talk to you, she could make you understand how much she loved you, that she would do anything to make amends to you. When you told her to leave the day you finally saw her, she was completely devastated. She cried for weeks. I was really afraid that she might do something to herself. I almost thought it better be that way, but I realized that if Jenny had committed suicide, it would have been the ultimate stab in the back. A lifetime of guilt, even if it was entirely her fault. So I'm glad that she at least spared me this horror. She kept thinking there had to be a way to make you understand, so you would give her another chance. We talked about it for hours, I just listened patiently as she went over it all over again. And so she came up with this idea. Angela squeezed my hand tighter. Nick, you have to really promise me that you won't explode, okay? I nodded, gritting my teeth. The last 20 minutes were too much information, as my teenage niece likes to say, and I wasn't looking forward to what came next. Jenny thought that if you had an affair too, it would be easier for you to forgive her for what she did. But she knew from your mom that you weren't dating at all. So she came to me one evening and asked me no. She begged me to seduce you. I let go of Angela's hand and jumped to my feet, looking at her. So that's what it's all about. All those weeks we spent together, just being friends, having fun, and then this cutout sweater, candles, bottle of wine. No, Nick, please let me finish. Old Nick hasn't been tricked and cheated on and had enough, so let's do it again, shall we? I practically screamed. Nick, listen, Angie shouted, tears streaming down her face. You promised. I was furious, but I closed my mouth and sat in a chair, as far away from her as possible, and waited for her to continue. I told her it was a terrible idea. It would be unfair to you to take advantage of your sorrow. Not to mention that she asked me to be and I hated the thought of lying to you or playing some game. You are my friend, and I told her that it would never, ever work. But she begged me. Nick, she begged. She knelt down in front of me and cried and said this is her only chance to ever get you back, and I'm her best friend, and I have to help her. She has no one, someone else she could turn to. And, Nick, I knew how much you loved her, or at least how much you loved her. Before, you were always so crazy about her and so kind to her. And I thought maybe it will be good for you too, find a way to get her back. So I told her I'd take a look. I'll come over and just hang out with you for a bit and see what happens. But I didn't promise anything. Angela's voice became very quiet. Part of the problem was that I was so drawn to you. I never thought of you that way, ever since I met you. You were Jenny's boyfriend, and the three of us have always been great friends. But now, when you broke up, I couldn't help but wonder how it would be. So I came to you, and we started hanging out, and well, Nick, we had fun. Really, is it so? And nothing romantic happened. And I kept telling myself that I was doing this for Jenny, but I had to go slowly, prepare the ground, not rush. I don't want to ruin everything. But the truth was that I was falling in love with you. Her voice became quieter. I just loved being around you. These casual dinners, or when we watched TV together, or whatever we did, I was so happy, Nick, and I didn't know what to do except I wanted it to last. But Jenny was getting more and more impatient, asking when I was finally going to sleep with you, and I felt so guilty. I felt guilty because I wasn't honest with you, and I wasn't honest with her either. The worst part is, if we actually slept together, would you go back to Jenny? I didn't think so, but I had to admit that I didn't want that to happen. She looked at me pleadingly. And here I am, Jenny insists that I seduce you, and I desperately want you, but for myself, not for her. And you are so sweet and cheerful, such a good friend. I started avoiding Jenny, not answering her calls, because I simply couldn't tell her the truth that I wanted you for myself. It was easier not to talk to her. That night, with the candles and the wine, I just decided I was going to get you into bed. Later, I would wonder why I did it. But when we started kissing and you were touching me, I got so horny. Damn it, Nick, I wanted you to love me. I wanted you to be my lover. I still want it. But I made a promise to Jenny, and I also knew that I was dishonest with you. And suddenly, I felt like my head was going to explode. I just knew it wasn't right, even though I wanted you so bad, and I just had to stop. We sat in silence. Angie was crying quietly, and I was clenching my fists so hard that I was afraid my nails would cut my palms. I knew what Davis would say if he were here, and it almost made me laugh, hearing his voice in my head. Jesus Christ in a hot air balloon. We probably sat for about 5 minutes in silence. Then I stood up and said, "What a story, Angela." Another chapter in the chronicles of Nick Perriman being led by the nose by women. What's that saying? Same shit, different day? That fits pretty well. I'm so sorry, Nick. Her head was down and I barely heard her. Me too, Angie. I turned and walked home, carrying my stupid folding chair with me. Davis said, I don't know, man. I need more information. We sat in my yard, each with a bottle of beer. Just answer the question, Davis. Is this my third nightmare, or just a continuation of the second? I guess it depends, Nick. Tell me this, are you most hurt and angry about the Jenny part because she found a way to mess with your head again? Or are you so upset because Angie deceived you? What if I say it's both? That's a cop-out. What's really worse? What really hurts? I thought for a moment. I think it's the Angie part. Believe it or not, the Jenny part isn't that bad because it's exactly what I expected from her. She wants what she wants, and she doesn't care how she gets it. I stopped appreciating her ethical standards a long time ago. I laughed a little. In that case, Davis said, this is definitely your third nightmare, because the first two were Jenny's, and this one is Angie's. Glad we cleared that up. Would you like another beer? Of course, he said. Then let's go eat. We ate a pizza and a half and both sat back relaxed, watching the cute waitress's ass as she moved around the restaurant. So what about Angie now? Have you talked to her? Not once. She's left me a few messages over the past 2 weeks, all unobtrusive, just saying how sorry she is. I just don't feel like calling her back. Why not? I thought a little. I think because I don't know what to tell her. Before I call her, I think I should know how I feel, what I want to achieve. But now I don't know at all. I mean, she lied to me, didn't she? She pulled Jenny's deal. But then again, when it came down to it, she stopped. That should be worth a few points. And when I finally got her to talk to me, she told me the truth, even the part that makes her look bad. And the thing is, I miss her. I keep thinking about how much fun we had together. Not to mention how amazing she looked in that blue sweater the night we almost made it. I would, of course, not refuse to finish what he started. But can I trust her? Is there any reason to believe that I can rely on her more than my bitch wife? Davis looked at me and said, it's time to go, man. When you start talking in circles, I know it's time to take you home. 3 days later, Jenny came to see me. Just like that, without warning, out of the blue. Was this Nightmare #4 or just appendix to Nightmares #1 or #2? By this time, I had lost track a little. It was about 8:30 p.m., and I was clearing away the dishes from dinner. The doorbell rang, and when I opened it, she was standing there. If I hadn't been so surprised, I might have closed the door in her face, but I just froze. Hi, Nick, she said in a small voice, like a little girl's. Can I come in and talk to you? I silently stepped back and allowed her to enter the living room. We sat opposite each other without saying anything. My heart wasn't pounding, my palms weren't sweaty. This time I just felt cold and empty. It was like seeing a person from a painful but distant past. And I realized that I was further along in the process of forgetting Jenny than I thought. Would you like something to drink or coffee? A glass of water would be great, thank you. I brought her a glass of water and one for myself. We sat in silence again. I knew one thing. I wasn't going to say a word. She came for a purpose. I was going to wait to see what it was this time. Nick, I haven't seen you in a long time. Not since the day I was here with you and Davis. I was waiting. I know you. Spent time with Angie because she told me about it from time to time when we talked. She looked at me, obviously hoping that I would intervene and help her, but I just watched her. But lately, for some reason, Angie hasn't been answering my calls. I don't know what's bothering her, whether she's mad at me or what. Still silent. Her gaze became more and more pleading. Nick, are you and her dating? Are you a couple, or are you just friends? Her tone was a little pleading. I said very slowly, I don't think it's any of your business, Jenny. You and I are not together anymore, and what happens in my personal life is a private matter. She looked offended, but nodded her head. Yes, I understand this. Then she took a deep breath and continued. You know why I'm asking you guess, don't you? I still love you, Nick, more than I ever realized. After my terrible mistake with Alec, I had a lot of time to think about everything I'd lost. Darling, all I want is to be with you again. I will do anything to make it up to you. God, what an idiot I was. But I know that now, honestly. I wondered why my heart wasn't pounding, why I felt somehow dull instead of tense. Jenny, I'm just not going back to you. You say you've been thinking about your mistake, but I don't think you realize how completely you've ruined me. Impulsively, I made a decision. I woke up. Come with me, okay? I want to show you something. She, surprised, followed me as I walked up the stairs. Soon we stood in front of the closed door of the room that was our bedroom. The first couple of weeks after you left, I went a little crazy. I moved into the guest room, but I kept coming back to our bedroom and doing things with it, letting my feelings out. Then I got tired of it and just stopped. I haven't been in that room since about 3 weeks after you left. But I think when you see this, you'll understand a little how your betrayal made me feel. I opened the door and turned on the light, then stepped aside to let her enter first. I heard her sigh, "Oh God," as she looked around. The bed was partially dismantled. The whole room still smelled like stale sex. Jenny's red nightie was pinned to one wall. Right where her heart would have been if she had been wearing it, there was a steak knife stuck into the nightie. The candles that stood by the bed the night I found her with Alec were broken into pieces, lying randomly on the floor. Wax marks marked the places where I had repeatedly thrown them against the walls. Pieces of our wedding album were everywhere. I tore it into pages, then tore the pages and photographs into pieces and scattered them around the room. At ankle level, there were several deep cuts on the walls where I had kicked them hard with my boots, and on one wall, written in large letters in red lipstick, were the words, "Die, bitch, bitch." I watched as Jenny looked around the room, taking in the ugliness and destruction. When she turned to me, a look of shock on her face, I said, "I bet you didn't know I could get that angry, did you?" I didn't know either. They say that in stressful times you learn new things about yourself. Well, I learned how much hatred and rage I have inside me, ready to be released with enough provocation. And you provided it, Jenny. There was a sadness on her face that I had never seen before. I felt like maybe she was finally starting to understand how much she had hurt me. Her voice empty, she said, "Oh, Nick, I'm so sorry. So sorry." She slowly walked towards me, trying to hug me. But I said, "No, Jenny, I don't think it's worth it." Without further words, I turned and walked back downstairs. Almost 10 minutes passed before she came down and sat with me in the living room. "This is really the end, isn't it?" I nodded to her. "You killed it, and it won't come back to life." She started crying, looking at me, her shoulders shaking. Then, a few minutes later, she stood up, still crying, and left the house. "I really need you here. Davis, are you my friend or not?" He looked at me with irritation. "Do you think I would have put up with all your antics all these years if I weren't your friend? Spare me," he said with a snort. "I just don't see why I need to be here while you're talking to Angela." "For luck, maybe," I said. "Remember when Jenny came to the house? It was your idea to be here with me, and thank God you were. I really needed your presence. So call it a stupid superstition, dude. Just don't leave, okay? At least stay here for the first few minutes." He sighed with excessive resignation, but I knew he would stay. We watched another half inning, and then, when the doorbell rang, I turned off the TV and went to answer the door. "Hi, Angie." "Hi, Nick," she said timidly. She looked so beautiful that I just wanted to hug her, but I didn't. She was wearing a white skirt and sleeveless vest with a slightly open neckline. Very attractive, but not at all provocative, and her hair was shiny and beautiful. I knew she wasn't as beautiful as Jenny, but I didn't care. She looked amazing. "Hi, Davis," she said, smiling at him as she walked into the living room. He stood up and kissed her on the cheek. "Hi, Angie." I asked Davis to stay while we talked at least for a while. Nick, I don't care who listens to my apology, I'll do it anyway. I'm so sorry. It's HH, I interrupted her. I know you're sorry. You said it when we were talking at your house, and you said it in how many phone messages after that? I smiled at her. So let's talk about what comes after an apology. I'll go first, then you, okay? Angie nodded. Okay, number one again. Jenny and I are done. Finally, forever. I don't hate her as much as I did before, but I'm never going back to her. Got it. Angie nodded again, a small smile crossing her face. So, number two, whatever you and I decide will concern only the two of us. All of Jenny's promises are canceled. She doesn't count. Do you agree? Yes, Nick, she said, sounding a little resigned. Now, to number three. You really hurt me, Angie. After what Jenny did, the last thing I needed was to fall in love with someone who was going to screw me over, you know. Of course I understand, Nick, and I'm so ashamed. Wait, did you say fall in love? She looked at me. A smile began to bloom. Yes, I replied, smiling back. Do you have a problem with this? No, honey, I don't have a problem with it. I looked at Davis and winked at him. He looked at Angie and I for another minute, enjoying our smiles at each other. Then he waved to me and headed towards the door. I walked over to Angela and gently lifted her to her feet. In that case, I think you owe me for that interrupted evening. I kissed her, and she put her arms around my neck and held me tightly. You know how this goes, right? It's hard to describe in words. Kisses, tongues, clothes fly in different directions. She pulls me onto the sofa. Actually, I want to tell you about the second time. When we finished making love for the first time, and damn, it actually felt like making love, and not just sex. We lay together and laughed a little. Then we stood up, leaving our clothes on the floor, and I led her by the hand into the kitchen. We got out some sausage, bread and cheese, and a bottle of champagne that I'd had in the fridge for ages since Jenny left, and went upstairs to my real bedroom, the one I actually slept in. We went to bed, ate and drank and laughed again, enjoying the slight giddy feeling that sharing a bottle of champagne can give. And then we did it a second time, and that was magic. We had long, slow, absolutely delicious sex. And then we kissed, smiled, and slept a little. And then we talked. It was the other way around, you know, Angie, I told her. I was sitting in bed, propped up on two pillows, and she was lying half on top of me, her head on my chest, playing with my hair on my chest. I mean, first we did it, and now we need to talk about what it meant. She suddenly pulled hard on my chest hair and laughed as I screamed and pushed her hand away. Well, I don't think talking about what that meant would take much time, at least for me. Oh yes, I said. Without looking at me, she continued. What that meant to me was that I was crazy about you, Nick. I started feeling this way about the third or fourth time we spent time together, and the feeling just got stronger and stronger. If it weren't for Jenny and my promise to her, if I only thought about myself, I would have dragged you into bed a long time ago. Now she sat up and looked straight into my eyes. I don't want to tell you that I'm in love with you, but that's mostly because I don't want to scare you away. But I will tell you that you mean a lot to me, and I intend to let you know that. And she kissed me tenderly, looking seriously into my eyes. Okay, Angie, now it's my turn. I'm crazy about you too, but I'm also coming out of a pretty painful, destructive relationship, and I may have trust issues. She pushed me in the ribs, and I spanked her butt. I understand why you did what you did, and thank God you stopped that night and were honest enough to explain everything to me. But it will take me a while, perhaps a long time, to feel like I can really trust you. It probably would have taken a long time anyway after what Jenny did. But that nonsense about sleeping with me so Jenny can get me back. Listen, there's something you need to see. I got out of bed and pulled her along with me. Naked, holding hands, we walked down the corridor and stopped in front of the closed door of our old bedroom. Inside is kind of a sanctuary to how bitter and angry I can be. You shouldn't have any illusions about me. I opened the door and motioned for her to come in. Then I went back to bed and sat down, waiting for her to return. A few minutes later, Angela returned to the room with a serious face. Without saying a word, she climbed into bed and snuggled up to me, snuggling as tightly as she could. She whispered into my shoulder, "I'm so sorry for what she did to you." Then she sat down. "And I'm so sorry for what I almost did. It kills me to think that I could have lost you like that." "Well, you didn't," I said roughly, suddenly feeling a lump in my throat. "And if you play your cards right, you won't lose." I kissed her tenderly. "Don't you know?" At that moment, damn it, the phone rang. With a silent curse, I picked up the phone. "Hello? Oh, hi, Mom. Listen, I can't talk right now. I'll call you back." With Angie's smile, I hung up. Subscribe to our channel so that your love doesn't cheat on you, and go ahead and listen to the next story, because this story is nothing compared to the next one. If you're under 18, don't even think. Click to the next one. Click to the next one. Click to the next one. Click to the next one.